Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm Bill Froehlich, and this is our weekly roundup of some of the stories that have been making headlines right here in northern Michigan recently. And with us at the table this week from the Northern Express, Pat Sullivan. Pat, good to have you back.
Hey, Bill.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Story this week in the Northern Express, timely with our primary election day in Michigan. The tone of political discourse, and you kind of found an interesting angle to that story with social media.
Yeah, well, I think you hear people talk about how things have gotten so discordant, and that's true. It's hard to figure out whether it's just from our perspective, we always think that, is it always that way, or has it actually gotten worse?
Right.
And so I was trying to figure that out.
What was the Facebook connection that you found? This was a group that a woman had started really for the purpose of having that political discussion, but not being so negative about it.
Right. I think she set out to find out whether it was possible for people who have serious disagreements about politics to have a place where they could go and have a reasonable discussion. And then within a year or so, the Facebook group shut down basically because they weren't able to have a reasonable discussion.
The wheels came off, but it started out somewhat well.
It started out where you had people who you didn't think were going to be able to sit in the same room with each other, talking to each other and trying to work through issues.
Maybe not quickly, over the course of the year, kind of devolved into this, hard left, hard right, back and forth argument, and that's really what led to its demise.
I think so. Yeah, I think the main conservative person who I talked to, Jason Gilman, who's running for state rep against incumbent Larry Inman in August on the Republican side. He's a staunch conservative, and he expressed his frustration. He felt like once he got on the group that it was dominated by liberals. The other side, on the liberal side, they felt like Jason was making hostile comments and was kind of trolling, and I guess he made some comment that upset the administrators of the Facebook page enough so that they removed the comment, and then that infuriated him, and he left, and I think everything kind of disintegrated from there.
You had a couple of different interesting angles to this story, which I really appreciated, and you talked to a couple of college professors about the social media and politics aspect. So touch on that for us.
Well, it was nice to have a chance to talk to these guys, John Zachman at NMC, and his name is escaping me, up at NCMC in Petoskey, North Central Michigan College. But I mean,
Zach something. It's escaping me too. But yes.
It was. I mean, these guys are both really smart, articulate people who think a lot about this, and I had interesting conversations with both of them. It's a hard question. It's hard to figure out where we are, whether you've got to believe that 50 years ago there were places where it was just as difficult to talk about politics with people you disagree with.
The Thanksgiving dinner table, probably.
Right. It's hard to put that in perspective.
Well, and again, the question is, has it always been this hostile, or has social media really just allowed us the venue to show everyone that it's this hostile?
And I think social media amplifies the hostility because it gives people this false sense of comfort where you're sitting in your bedroom or you're sitting in your house, and you feel like you can just sort of snipe at people, and you can jump into a conversation and say some mean thing. It seems like even sometimes in innocuous subjects on social media, people are kind of tone deaf to what their comment might sound like, when it's in the string of comments below something.
Yeah, I think that's true. It also strikes me, and this was something someone that you interviewed in the article brought up, that you can have a discussion, but as soon as you say, conservative or liberal, all of a sudden it takes on a negative tone. Or as soon as you mention Obama or Trump or Clinton or Cruz, all of a sudden it becomes negative, no matter what the context is. That just the whole notion of taking a side kind of shuts a lot of people down to rational discussion, for lack of a better term.
It seems that it seems like it's getting harder and harder to acknowledge the people you disagree with. And I think that happens with liberal and conservative issues. And I think it happens on a local level also. I thought it was interesting to talk to Gary Howe about how there are a lot of local issues in Traverse City lately that you can't unravel on a
red or blue.
On a red or blue spectrum. It's going to be more complicated who's on what side of things, whether you're talking about a homeless shelter or whether we should have a 9-story building that features affordable housing. And there's not a liberal conservative delineation there that's clear, but you get into the issue and you find out that the feelings are just as raw and the same dynamics are happening between the two sides in a lot of those issues.
For what it's worth, I think that's great that we have those issues locally that people are so passionate about that don't depend on party lines, that we don't talk about Democrats want this and Republicans, they don't want XYZ, or someone wants the homeless shelter and this party doesn't. It's nice that we can have that discussion without talking about party politics, but it also goes to show too that we still have that intensity about political issues, regardless.
Well, it's probably and it's a good sign in the sense that we have a passionate local debate going on, and a lot of people. I mean, it shows that things are happening in town, and a lot of people care about them, which is a good thing. I mean, that's the kind of place that I want to live. So
yeah, and it sounded like Gary Howe, city commissioner, felt the same way. He was glad to see that, at least interest in the local issues.
Yeah, I think so. I think he feels that way, and I think he enjoys, even though you look at where he's at in some of these issues, and people heap a lot of criticism on him, but I think he enjoys being in the mix and mixing it up with people. And I mean, he believes passionately and decides that he takes about improving the city, making our streets better, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The other person you talked to in that article, Kent Wood from the Chamber, Government Relations Director. Give us your takeaway from that conversation.
Well, I think he is in a position where he wishes that local governments would maybe work better than they do, because sometimes this lack of harmony kind of slows things down to a crunch, and it's unfortunate that a local board can't all be on the same side when it comes to economic development or an issue like that. I think he finds that to be frustrating. I thought it was ironic and interesting that he picked the Grand Vision as an example of something that shows that people from all different sides can work together, because maybe that shows that. And that was a long process that we heard about for many years, but it seems like one of the most contentious local issues now when it's brought up. I mean, what do you hear about it?
No, I agree. And when I read that too, I was trying to rack my brain, trying to remember, because I went to, I'm sure, several of those Grand Vision meetings where everybody came together and we're looking at drawings and sketches and proposals all around the room and giving input. And at the time, I thought it was like a 10-year process or something. I don't remember.
It was a long time.
Sound right, but it just felt like, on the one hand, this is great that we're getting all this input and all these people are coming together, but it's going to take so long to get anything done. And now that the Grand Vision is closed, like you said, we've had a lot of people say, well, this idea doesn't meet the Grand Vision, or this proposal doesn't line up with what we decided in the Grand Vision, or we need to do more of this, because I mean, like you said, it's all very.
Or if it
there's
I mean,
still a lot of controversy.
If something comes